There's a woods not too far from my home, a place that's both beautiful and unsettling. A clear stream runs through it, cascading gently into a natural lake surrounded by towering trees. On a sunny day, the area seems idyllic, almost magical. But there's something about being there in person, a heavy, eerie feeling that settles into your bones, an uneasy whisper on the wind that something is off. The locals say this unease stems from the late 1800s, when three women known as witches were said to practice their craft in those woods. People used to talk about eerie chants at midnight and strange fires flickering through the trees. Legend has it that one of their incantations went wrong, releasing an evil spirit that cursed the land. Some believe that curse lingers even today, like a shadow you can't escape. This lore felt distant and abstract until about a year ago, when it touched my life in a chilling way. My friend Alex grew up with me exploring these stories, but he dismissed them. He was training to be a pastor, dedicating his life to helping others. Part of his work involved mentoring young people facing tough times, trying to guide them onto better paths. There was one young man he mentored who had deep rooted problems. Alex never shared much about him, respecting his privacy, but it was clear he was troubled. Then, one quiet evening, while Alex was at home watching TV, this young man walked into his house and shot him 3 times, ending his life. The senseless violence of it shattered our community. When the police apprehended the young man and asked him why he did it, he responded in a detached, almost trance-like state. "The witches made me do it." That phrase chilled us all to the core. For many, it was a disturbing glimpse into how the darkness of those woods might extend its reach into modern times. The rational part of me understands the boy's illness likely drove his actions, but that eerie explanation linked the tragedy back to those woods' sinister reputation. Intriguingly, after Alex's death, more strange occurrences started happening around the woods. People reported hearing disembodied whispers while walking alone or catching glimpses of shadowy figures darting between the trees. At night, distant sounds of laughter or chanting would drift through the air, unexplainable yet unmistakable. On one such night, I decided to visit the woods myself, hoping to find some connection to Alex, or perhaps an understanding of what happened. Standing by the lake, I felt it, a suffocating presence, like the forest was watching with dark, invisible eyes. The chill in the air wasn't just from the night breeze, it was deeper, older, as if the land itself was holding its breath. I never saw anything concrete that night, no ghosts or specters, but the feeling of being watched was undeniable. As I left the woods, a branch cracked loudly behind me, making me jump. I turned around, half expecting to see something or someone, but the path was empty, shrouded in moonlit shadows. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen was there, lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. This experience convinced me that those stories weren't just tales told to amuse or scare, they carried a grain of truth. It's as if the woods themselves hold memories of those witches and their curse, and every now and then that malevolent spirit stirs, reaching out into our world. Maybe that's why the locals keep their distance, acknowledging the woods as a place where the past still breathes, its whispers carried on the wind, warning us of things beyond our understanding. Back in the mid 1980s, the thrill of pushing boundaries was irresistible. My friend Jake and I were seasoned thrill seekers, at least as much as high school kids can be. Every weekend we sought adventures, but the Halloween of 1985 promised something truly unforgettable. We had heard whispers around town of a newly dug grave left open at St. Michael's Cemetery. On Halloween night, our decision to engage with the otherworldly took a daring turn. Armed with a Ouija board and our flickering flashlights, we resolved to test our courage and, perhaps, recklessness. By the time the clock struck midnight, the air was crisp with an unsettling silence, and the cemetery loomed in an eerie stillness. The silhouette of the grave under the moon's cold gaze was both inviting and forbidding. We clambered down into the pit, our breaths visible in the chilly air. The dirt walls seemed to close in around us, a claustrophobic cocoon. Settling at the bottom, we positioned the Ouija board between us. Our flashlights cast long shadows, which danced with the slightest movements. With hands trembling slightly, we placed our fingers on the planchette. "Is there anyone here with us?" I called into the void, voice tinged with both excitement and fear. At first, nothing happened, just the rustling leaves and our own breaths. But then, the planchette shivered beneath our fingers and slowly slid to yes. We exchanged nervous glances, half excited, half terrified. "What's your name?" Jake asked. Again the planchette moved, spelling out EVAN. We asked more questions: who he was, how he died. The answers were disjointed and cryptic, but enough to convey a chilling story of a life cut short, a restless spirit. As we continued, the wind picked up, whistling through the trees above, and the night seemed to deepen unnaturally. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from above. Panic surged through us, our bravado shattered. We scrambled out of the grave and ran, not daring to look back, feeling like hunted prey, fleeing from some unseen predator. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of my room, breathless and hearts pounding. We laughed then, albeit nervously, convincing ourselves it was just the wind or an animal. We stashed the Ouija board and tried to shrug the whole thing off. But things changed after that night. Small, uncanny occurrences began plaguing us. At first, it was just little things: doors creaking open on their own, shadows out of the corner of my eye, electronic static whispering at bedtime. Jake joked about it the next day at school, but I could see the worry in his eyes matched the unease in my gut. As days passed, the disturbances escalated. Lights flickered ominously and objects shifted positions with no explanation. I woke up one night, cold sweat coating my skin, to the sensation of someone in the room, breathing close yet invisible. The worst came one evening while I lay in bed, half asleep. I heard it clearly, a voice whispering my name. "Ryan!" My blood ran cold. I tried to ignore it, pulling the blankets tighter, when suddenly something tugged them away. I lay stunned, paralyzed by fear, as a shadowy figure loomed at the foot of my bed. Its presence was suffocating, a mix of dread and despair washing over me. The next morning I called Jake, voice trembling. He admitted he was experiencing the same terror, a cold presence in his room at night, whispers, shadows that seemed to move with a mind of their own. It was clear something followed us home from that grave. Frightened and desperate, we decided to seek help. We confided in a local spiritualist who listened with grave understanding. She told us we had invited a restless spirit into our lives, one eager to escape its earthly confines. Following her instructions, we performed a cleansing ritual, apologizing to the spirit and asking it to leave us in peace. Slowly, the disturbances faded, the shadows retreated, and the whispers ceased. It felt as though a heavy weight lifted. Looking back, the thrill of that Halloween night had awakened a curiosity in us that danced with danger. We learned then that some boundaries are better left untested, some doors remain unopened. Yet the memory lingers, a faint reminder that sometimes the darkness watches and waits just beyond the edge of our reality. There's a lonely stretch of highway in central Indiana that everyone seems to know about, but pretends doesn't exist. It's a desolate road cutting through miles of cornfields and thick woods, known for people mysteriously disappearing. They call it the Devil's Bend. Stories have circulated for years, claiming someone once found a decapitated head lying in a ditch on that very road. As you can imagine, this place is a magnet for young thrill seekers and paranormal enthusiasts looking for a good scare. And just like them, I couldn't resist the pull of that road. One cold fall evening, my two friends Ethan and Claire and I decided to drive out to Devil's Bend. Claire had heard a rumor that something evil lurked in the tall grass by the side of the road, and as stupid as it might sound now, we wanted to see it for ourselves. Armed with nothing but flashlights and our bold curiosity, we set out into the night. As we traveled that evening, the world around us darkened into a dense, enigmatic cloak. When we arrived at the stretch of highway, the sky was a deep, pitiless black, casting the entire landscape in shadow. Our headlights swept over the empty road, and nothing but the rustling of the wind accompanied us. We parked on the roadside, the silence nearly deafening once the car engine silenced. I felt a chill creep up my spine, and I wasn't sure if it was because of the cool October air or the palpable tension of the place itself. Still, we pushed on, flashlights in hand, and walked towards the fields. Every crunch of gravel underfoot was like an explosion in the quiet night. We scanned the tall grass, half expecting to see something leap out at us. After a while, we relaxed slightly, convincing ourselves the legend was nothing but a scarecrow story. We began to joke, trying to ease the tension. Suddenly, Claire jumped. "Did you hear that?" she whispered sharply. We froze. There it was again, a clear, distant rustling, like something moving through the grass. We stood still, holding our breaths, trying to locate the sound. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure it would give us away. Then it stopped altogether, leaving an eerie silence that stretched on. I was about to laugh it off when Ethan's flashlight flickered briefly, casting unsettling shadows that seemed to skitter away like startled insects. Then, out of nowhere, we heard a blood-curdling scream that sent our hearts racing. It was human yet distorted, echoing around us, and it was right there. For the briefest moment, I swore I saw a shadow darting among the trees. "Run!" Ethan yelled, and that's all it took. We sprinted back towards the car, feet stumbling over uneven gravel. As I reached the safety of the road, I turned back and saw it, a figure standing eerily still at the edge of the grass, shrouded in darkness. It was tall, too tall, its shape barely discernible against the night sky. We threw ourselves into the vehicle, scrambling to lock the doors. Ethan twisted the keys in the ignition, his fingers fumbling in panic. The shadowy figure remained motionless, watching us, and as the engine finally roared to life, something slammed against the back window, making us scream. Peeling away from the scene, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The drive home was silent, our earlier bravado replaced by a stunned understanding that the rumors weren't just stories. Something dwelt in that grass, something that didn't want to be disturbed. That night kept me awake for hours, listening intently for signs it might have followed us home, knowing that the whispers on that road were much more than just wind. And every time I drive past a lonely stretch of highway now, I'm reminded of the chilling presence we disturbed that night, the dark secret of Devil's Bend better left undisturbed.